Hello, my name is Florian. I'm a process and energy engineer, and I'm currently doing a PhD in transition engineering. And I want to ask you if you can imagine that a couple of primary school students at the far north end of Scotland could actually become transition engineers themselves and make changes that they demand. Let's find out. I want to give you a brief overview of a transition engineering lab project that we did here at Harvard University together with a local primary school. And if we look into the issue of climate change, schools, education, we see, first of all, that many educators actually stop teaching climate change at all because they see that the way that climate change is currently being taught does not enable students to find their own ways of doing something against it, because it's mostly about the problems and mostly about how adults are responsible for that, and that doesn't really give students space in that area. And what we also see is that in regards of school, that the majority of the carbon emissions actually come from the school transport itself. Now we had an overview of the whole problem together with the school community and also with our expert teacher Kate Tausi. And what we saw is that the heart of the problem of climate change, education, school transport is that on the one hand side we see that really anyone and everyone can use fossil fueled cars. That's pretty clear. What we also see on the other hand side is that we've got a school and we've got students that actually want to change this. They want to do something about climate change themselves, but they currently do not have a way to ensure safe and sustainable school transport that's fair and equitable for everyone. This is why we went back in the past and tried to understand how school transport worked in the past, and this is probably pretty obvious for everyone. Obviously, up until recently, up to the last couple of decades, the school run was mostly done by foot or maybe by cycling. We see that we don't really have cars in Orkney for that long, at least in every household. And we see that at the moment, obviously, the majority of the school run is done by fossil fuels in one way or another. And if we look at the different options that we have, we see that lots of the green technology options are available, but the costs of the whole system transition towards green technology is currently just not feasible for a school community. Which is why we asked the school, the students and the teachers to imagine how their city, how their place, which is Kirkwall, will look in the future. Because we want to understand how they see the future unfolding and what their needs in the future are. And what we see is that Kirkwall remains pretty much the same, apart from that climate change has probably been avoided because it is a place next to the ocean, so it hasn't been swamped by the ocean. We see that the school is still there, so that's good. What we also see is that there will still be students, and that we can see that the students actually now make the way to the school in a safe and sustainable manner. And we can also see that, and this is really important in this specific school context, that anyone's needs are being taken care of, because this school is a school for students with special needs. And there are just some students and probably also some teachers and carers who just can't walk or cycle to school. So we know that in the future we still have some sort of motorized transport, but that's okay because we'll take care of that as the community in a fair way. Now the question is, what is missing between then and now? What do they in the future have that we don't have at the moment? And the transition engineers identified that the one thing that's probably missing at the moment is that children do not have a way to engineer their own changes they request. Which is why we set out together with an expert teacher to develop the Shift project that we call the School Run to Net Zero program. And this program has the goal to reduce the current level of car trips and fossil fuel in the school run by 80% to actually reach the goal of net zero school transport as soon as possible. And this program consists of 4 different parts that are all accompanied by teacher resources, learning activities, and also digital tools for the whole community. The first part is understanding and exploring the challenges. And this is what I said earlier, that the current way of teaching climate change just does not work with young learners. So we decided to develop a lesson and workshop material that actually teaches the learners about climate change in an actionable way, linking climate change and the causes of climate change to daily activities to make students understand what climate change means in their life. The second part is about school transport. This is about mapping the school run to build on that knowledge about climate change, and on top of that, build and form an understanding about the current ways that the school transport is done, to see where we're at and to also see where we need to go in terms of net zero school transport. And as I also said earlier, equity, inclusivity, and fairness play a very, very big role. And this has been acknowledged by others in the field, which is why we set out to develop a part of the program that's about rules, sharing, and caring. And what we see is that especially young learners, they are very cautious about others. They want that anyone's being treated fairly, and now especially in the future where we know that there will be some restrictions on cars in the school run, this was really important to see that the students actually are able to make their own rules and that they're able to share a limited resource in this case and to actually care for each other. And the fourth bit here is about celebrating, because we know that all of this takes a lot of work, and we know that achieving this actually deserves celebration. And this celebration was done in a festival. I'll show you a picture about that in the next slide. So, what did we actually achieve now? We achieved that students became transition engineers. We call ourselves transition engineering students. And most importantly, students and learners actually learned how to change what needs change using the basic ideas of engineering. And we see that we have a really nice reception in public. We saw that through newspaper articles, through students speaking up on the radio about what we're doing and what they expect from the adults. And really interestingly, we see that in the school, without having put this into the design of the Shift project, that in the school a Net Zero Heroes committee formed, basically, which wanted to help communicate and facilitate the program itself and therefore also the transition. And last but not least, we also see from the achievement and celebration part of the Shift project that the school actually managed by themselves to close the school car park. Because this was obviously a big debate that what if we actually make it to the goal of 80% reduction of fossil fuel in the school run? What happens with the car park? And obviously, you can imagine that students have a lot of great ideas how to reuse the car park in their way. And so the students went out with chalk and paint and redecorated the car park. Sadly, as we are here in Orkney, it started raining during the day, so most of it is washed away by now. But during the day, you could tell that students were really creative once you actually let them be in the position to decide a thing. So now, I think you could answer the question yourself whether or not students can actually become transition engineers to make their own changes happen. and I'm happy to discuss any questions with you around that. Thank you very much.